How do we have joy in every season? It's not something we can will ourselves to walk in. There is no amount of striving or gritting our teeth that will allow us to experience more joy or more spirituality. True joy is found when we come to understand how loved we are and that there is purpose to the seeming pain and wrong turns in our stories. In 2018, my 21-month-old son was diagnosed with neuroblastoma. Our family spent the last 5 years in and out of hospitals, and in April of this year, my son Chase went home to be with Jesus. His 7th birthday is next week. It will be the first one he celebrates in heaven. I'm told by the world that I should be deeply grieving. Some people think I have a good reason to be mad at God. Should joy even be a part of my story? I can tell you that peace is my portion, and there is purpose to every moment of my life, even in the loss of a child. It's because God has taught me 2 important lessons. True joy in every season is rooted in knowing who I belong to and why I am here. If our perspective is properly aligned to our true reality, then there can be not just a little joy, but overflowing and overwhelming joy in every season, no matter the circumstances. In Matthew 22, Jesus is approached by a teacher who wants to test him. He asks, "Teacher, which is the greatest commandment in the law?" And Jesus replies, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. And the second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. All of the law and the prophets hang on these 2 commandments." What is Jesus getting at? First, he is helping us glean a proper perspective of him. We can't fully realize our own worth until we understand the fullness of who God is. If we don't have a holistic perspective of God, loving him with our heart, our soul, and our mind, then we can't fully know him. And if we don't fully know him, how can we understand his purposes or how he truly sees us? We can't even begin to walk in that second commandment of fully loving others until we know just how important our stories are to him. We can only love fully when we know how loved we are. Otherwise, we will communicate with others from a place of insecurity or pride. Understanding who God is a lifelong process that we grow from glory to glory in. But it's going to take all of the ways that he designed us. Our mind, our body, our soul, and our spirit. That's why Jesus spells it out in such depth. He's not just a God of head knowledge, but a God we love with our hearts as well. To fully know God, we have to be able to experience him in our soul, the place where our will and emotions reside, and in better understanding him with our mind intellectually. The 2 go hand in hand, and it's only in knowing him fully that we can then begin to understand what he is doing in our own stories without putting our own agenda on it. God is pure goodness. There is no evil in him. His love is undiluted, perfect, and for our good. He holds both truth and grace in the same breath. And when we know the fullness of God, we can come to understand this goodness. He is for us. His plans are for us. Even when he is disciplining us, it is done with love and for a purpose. And when we know how he sees us, we can face the circumstances of our life knowing he is writing a bigger story, and there is purpose to what may seem from the outside to be painful or unfair. When we know our God is for us and his plans and purposes are for our good, then we can have joy in knowing he is writing something beautiful and important in our life, and there is no chance that he missed something or that the seeming losses we experience are an accident. The Lord revealed so much of his heart to me on my son's cancer journey when I started asking the right questions. Instead of why God, as I learned and experienced the depth of his love for me, I learned to position my heart in trust and instead ask, "What are you doing here, Lord? Where are you at work?" That simple shift in position is what we need to properly know and love the Lord and know his care for us. I watched him shift and change things in the midst of my trial that opened my eyes to the fact that my God was fighting for me. And as I began to understand these deeper truths, I began to understand just how adored I was. My family was in the center of his hands. It's when we have the proper understanding of our identity that we are free to be able to love others as he loves and sees us. Some of that I talk about in my soon-to-be-released book, Live Out Love. Our witness speaks louder than our words. That comes out this month. I'm just scratching the surface of that story here. Why can I trust his purpose for my life? Before my son got sick, my marriage was a mess, and I cried out to God to heal it. And I watched him to do that in the middle of the cancer battle. He took our differences and He made it the perfect environment to heal what was broken. He used the last season of seeming pain to destroy idolatry, cultivate understanding, foster forgiveness, and ultimately make us one. But there were some big boulders. The Bible calls them strongholds that were keeping us from walking in total freedom. And as God and I wrestled in prayer, He shared His heart with me for my family. There were things I realized that He wanted me to do, and He could do it most effectively in the passing of my son. I felt this in my spirit in his final months, while I wrestled with Him for the supernatural healing I wanted and had watched Him do so many times before. I felt He had something bigger in mind. When Chase passed this past April, I watched strongholds evaporate and hearts get hungry for eternity. My son's passing shifted heart alignments that were not budging beforehand. Things I had been warring for in prayer for years. God did the deep work of healing my family, restoring relationships, and causing those I love to hunger for Him afresh. I'm walking in answers to prayers I prayed 5 years ago, but I had to change my perspective to have eyes to see in the Spirit, to fully understand what He was doing that might not make sense from the surface. My prayer is that you are encouraged to look at the seeming trials of your life with a new eye, a joyful one. Is God actually writing an epic story in your life? If you would but position your heart to trust the one who loves you fully, you will find that loving others as you are loved comes naturally. He loves you. His plans are for you, and His plans are for your neighbor too. So walking from a place of knowing your value and just how important the story is that He's crafting in your life, you can begin to live out that second commandment, which will give you purpose and joy, not in striving to do it because you need to do it, but loving others as He has shown you just how much He loves you. So be encouraged. He's good. He's for you. There is purpose to your story, and it is a purpose that will impact others. Ask Him to show you the deeper things, because that is a prayer that He always answers.